So welcome to this webinar. If you want to unlock the full potential of your data, generate the right report with the right data, and deliver it to the right user in the right context and at scale, today I will be diving into dashboard and report designing with Jaspersoft. So we'll learn how to design stunning reports and dashboards with interactive charts, graphs that can be embedded into any applications and delivered to the users in any format. So whether you need to deliver interactive reports such as financial reports or logs, schedule reports such as invoices, pay slips, or give access to the users to an interface that will allow them to drill through, drill down, or navigate to the data, we will have some content for you today. So in this webinar, we will show you how anyone can create insightful reports and dashboards. So today, I'm your host. I'm Raphaël Peguet. As a solution engineer at Jaspersoft, I work with clients to leverage our platform for powerful data insights. And I'm looking forward today to walk you through this webinar with a few slides and live demos. So we will have 4 parts today. We will create pixel perfect templates with a desktop application, Jaspersoft Studio. Secondly, we'll create pixel perfect templates with the web designer. So Jaspersoft Studio is now available as a web application. So Jasper Reports Web Studio. And then we'll look into creating reports using self-service designer, the ad hoc, and we'll be looking into creating dashboards. So quite busy agenda. So I'll keep it short with the slides, so we have more time for the demos. So whether you need to schedule a report to be sent to the masses or create a dashboard, Jaspersoft has 4 options to design your content. The Jaspersoft philosophy is to start with a template and then generate reports in any format. So when it comes to pixel perfect reporting, we have Jaspersoft Studio. So pixel perfect, whether you want the report in a PDF document, in HTML page, in Word document, in Excel, it will look the same. And in the world of reporting, the needs are very vast and wide. So we have designed over the last 20 years a tool that has a very high level of control. So you can pretty much do anything from displaying the content you need, but also from organizing where the page cuts and things like this. And the tool is filled with little helps to help you find the right function, to do your calculations, etc. And this makes Jaspersoft the owner of this very world most popular IDE. Jaspersoft Studio, from this nearly 25 years of existence, has become very widely used. So I'll present that to you today. Much newer, it's the Jasper Report Web Studio. So from the experience we accumulated with Jaspersoft Studio, we created another pixel perfect designer, but this time in a web interface. So that's enable our customers to enable their users then to edit templates or even create templates. And it has very detailed amount of controls. So the users can do a lot, and we'll see the differences in the demo. With the ad hoc designer, we have much simpler interface, also available to web interface, with intuitive drag and drop, a variety of visualization, and possibility of drilling, filtering, a little bit of looking for the answer. We don't know what we want to design as a report. We want to look at our data, and then from this data, the idea of a report comes up, and we can save it as a report. And it's secured and localized with a metadata layer, which is the domain. And we also have, in the world of BI, we also have a dashboard designer. Similar interface as ad hoc with intuitive drag and drop, enables to create interactivity, mashable, drilling, drill through, drill down, possibilities to zoom, export, refresh, and lots of functions to format. So we'll start with the desktop application. Jaspersoft Studio, so the industry's most advanced design environment, and we can really tell that because we still have hundreds of thousands of downloads of our different solutions every month. So we've seen this number growing over time, extremely popular. It's based on the Eclipse environment. So for those of you who are a bit more technical, you may know Eclipse and you may recognize the interface with different panels, a panel to access systems from the outside. So the data source to query the data, or the server, just report server when you want to publish the report. We have a panel for the main designer in the center, but also have the outline in a panel. So to look at all the elements that are presented in a report when we have a lot of things to display, then we can always find it easily in the outline. And then we have a palette with a lot of options to add elements such as text fields, charts, maps, shapes. Yes, so, yes, more panels, we have the properties. So each element will have its own properties. So you can define the position and the color, the appearance, and different criteria for each element, depending on which element it is. Of course, for a chart, it will be different than from a text field. And when you preview this report in the studio, then we also manage errors handling and time it takes to run, etc. All right, so that was actually very short introduction. I just want to dive straight into into the demo. To start with, we'll be designing a customer report. We'd like to create a report about my customers. I'm the owner of a store, or different stores located in many cities, countries, and I'd like to have a report that's focusing on their occupancy. So occupation, sorry. So I'd like to know who are my customers. The report needs to be pretty. It needs to run around against my operational data, so potentially large data set. And the report should look good in PDF and HTML. We'll see there's more options to run this report, more formats. All right, so this is Jaspersoft Studio in real, not a screenshot. We'll look at my panel here, where I have my connections to the data sources and my report, and I will be creating a new report. So I'll be keeping blank templates. I can actually choose templates that would have already created in my company. All my templates need to look the same way. I create one, I save that as a master template, and then everyone else, myself or others in the company, will be able to use the same template. So for today, I start from a blank page, so you know everything. This will be my customer occupation report. And I will connect directly to my operational data source. This is PostgreSQL, so I have specific schema, and I can start by writing my query. And very often we already know a query because maybe we know already the database and we are familiar with SQL, but sometimes we are less familiar. So Jaspersoft allows you to just copy paste the query here or type it directly, or we have a little diagram. So I can select my customer table and my customer sales, and I can even join this, drag and drop. On the customer ID, I'd like to select the full name, the sales, the city, the state, the country, and the occupation. And when I do that, it's actually creating the query for me. So nicely presented, easy to read. I will just add the an order by, so I can order by states. I can take from here. Don't need to type it again. I forgot the little word by, but it quickly told me. So easy to create your query. And then when I do that, Jaspersoft will run the query and will see that there is columns retrieved, and whether they come from one table or another table, it all becomes fields in Jaspersoft. And now when I create my template, I'm not going to work with tables and columns, I'm going to work with fields. And actually I can even give them a better name. I'm just going to keep it like this and select them all. And I'm going to group it by province. All right, so we've done the query part. We can create a report. Jaspersoft is a banded reporting tool. So we work with bands. We have the title band, page header, column header. If it's not dark enough, we can see them here in the outline: title, page header, column header. I'm going to start by adding the title. So I'm going to make about 150 pixel height title and a static text. This doesn't need to be interactive. I always want to create the same title regardless of, maybe I can run it on a specific parameter. So that's going to be my customer report. And I'd like to make it larger. Actually, I'm going to size that text field to the container. So to the title band here, I want to center it both ways, make it bold, and I'm going to increase the size. I mentioned earlier the property panel. It's here, very important for everything we do. I'd like to change the font color. So I'm going to make it a nice blue. This one is color I like. And I can even change the font. I have a wide library of fonts, so I can look for the déjà vu sounds. All right, so that's my title. Now I'd like to put my data inside my reports, and I won't need all these bands. They're just here to make it simple to start any report. But the page header, the summary, the background, page footer, I'm not going to use them today, so I can delete them. So that's clean a little bit the interface. And but I would like to present the groups. I'm grouping my data by states. So I'd like a little nice title for each group. So I'm going to add the group header. That's my state province group header. And I'm going to start by looking at my field. So in the outline, I have my parameters, my field, and I'm going to take the full name, the sales, and the cities, and the occupation. So these four should be good, and I'm going to place them in the detail band. And the particularity of the detail band is that it will repeat for each row that comes back from my data source. So the column header will repeat at the top of each page, but the detail band will repeat for every record. So, so when I present the data like this, I know that they will be like designed as a table. And the state province, I'm going to put it in the header. And because this is not in the detailed, It's not for every record. It's asking me, do you need to count, distinct count, or no calculation? So it's going to be no calculation. I can just take the first one that comes up. All right, so I'm going to align the size of the bands to the data I have, and I can work on making this a little bit better. So I'm going to make it bold, centered, maybe a little bit bigger. This full name, make it look like a real name. Same for the sales. The occupation, can add capitals everywhere. All right, and the other text field, I'm going to also do the same, but this time just centered this way. And I like to add a little bit of margin. So in my borders, I can put some paddings, maybe 5 pixels. I don't need for the titles because they are centered. All right, so one last thing I can do, because I know I have a lot of data in my data source, I'm going to make each row a bit smaller so it doesn't generate too many pages. All right, very good. I'd like to highlight a little bit this group header. I'm going to add a frame. Frames in Jaspersoft, if you start looking into the user guides, or if you take one of our trainings, you'll find that frames are actually quite interesting elements. They can do a lot, sometimes unsuspected. Here, I'm going to just put it before the text, and I'm going to also size it to the container. And actually, I can even put the text in the frame. So that's one way to group elements as well sometimes. And this frame will have a blue background. So the back color will have this blue background. I'm going to remove. So then the text should probably be simply white. Excellent. Actually, I'll put it bold. All right. So let's see what we have so far. I can preview. I can see now 156 pages. All my data nicely aligned. I actually see my sales is a bit odd. I may need to fix this, and I can navigate to the pages all the way to the last one where I have the last page. So let's fix the currency. So this is dollar amount. So in the pattern, I can just specify this is a currency with euro, or actually dollar sign. And I'd like to add a chart. So my chart will be displaying columns, and for each occupation, I'd like to have the number of my customers that declared that occupation. So I will create a second data set. We'll be using the same data source connection, but this one will be specifically for the chart. And that will allow me to create the to directly calculate, outsource, let's say, the calculation of counting the number of customers to the database, because databases nowadays are extremely quick with that. So let's leverage this speed. I already prepared a query for us today. This could be a case where I have the database admin beside me and gave me this great query for me. So I see that I'm filtering on the state. So for each state, I will be able to present a chart. And I'm going to keep all these fields in my data set. I don't need to group by specifically. And that's it. So now I have in the outline as well this data set, and I can review it again in dataset and query dialog. And here I'd like to actually pass a parameter to make this dynamic. And in the query, I can dynamically inject the value of a parameter. I don't have a parameter yet, but I'll create one. That's going to be my state parameter. It's a string. I know it's the first two letters of the state. So I'm going to set a default value so I can just make sure I'm not breaking the query. So when I try and I test the query, it's going to take the default value of my parameter. And I can drag my parameter in that query. So in the data preview, let's look at the data. I have all my data aggregated on the customer count for the number of customers for each occupation and for California. So that's quite nice. That's already now for my chart. I'm going to put the chart. I can put it in group footer. So for each group, I'd like to add this chart. I'm going to make the band a little bit bigger, and in my Pro component. So this is a commercial edition of or even a trial of Jaspersoft Studio. I have different components in a Pro category. And I can select the chart and design it here. So I want a column chart, and in the data configuration, I will be using the data set I've just created. I'll use the same connection than my report. And in the parameter, in the dataset query, I'm passing a specific parameter. So that parameter should come from the main report, the table, and that I'm grouping by state. So I'd like to link that state parameter I created in the sub dataset with the field value from my table. So in the field, I have the state province. That's actually the same information I'm displaying in the group header. So that's where in each group, I will assign this parameter to the value of the group, that the states we are looking into. And so that way we'll be able to display a chart at the bottom of the group. Okay, and then in the data, we need to set a specific category. So we'd like to see the occupations. And the series, I'm just going to have one series today just to show the customer count. It's already grouped in my query, and I can just simply say customer count by occupation. Actually, I don't need to preview the report. There's a little feature here, show chart preview, which is very handy because often when we create a chart, there's a lot of formatting. We may want to align or change the legend, the data which is displayed on the top, or maybe we don't want, we can disable it. Jaspersoft allow a very wide range of properties. Actually, a lot of things is possible. It's possible to control every aspect of a chart. So if we change something, we don't need to run the full report each time. We can change it, refresh the preview here, and then it applies. Nice little trick if you want to design a report, including a chart. All right, so let's also size this to the container. I had taken some notes. Yes, we should be good. Oh, one last thing. I'd like to also make it look a bit more like a report. So I have prepared an image that will decorate my report. So I'm going to position that image also in the title band. And from the workspace, so that's the Jaspersoft project workspace, I'm going to browse and look for my the PNG, the report cover. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to make this all the way, including the margins. And I'm going to, did I go too far? The little red dot tells me when I go too far. Let me add. Need a bit more space. My title band. Okay. One thing, I don't think it's outside. Let's put it a little bit more to the right so it's aligned. All right, let's see how it goes. If there's an error, that's a way to practice the error. No, it works. Excellent. So now I have my report still. Well, now I have nearly 160 pages. So quite a few pages. So for each group, so for each state, I will have a little chart. So instead of going through all the pages, I actually didn't learn the page number for the chart. I can actually jump directly to the last page. I know it's going to be a chart. That's the end of the last group. So I'm going to let it run all the way to the last page, and I have my beautiful chart. All right. So hopefully this covers creating a chart with Jaspersoft. We've seen how to create interactive reports. We can hover over the bars. The bars opens nicely, and there's actually more to it. We can connect to multiple data sources. What we've done with the current connections, we would have connected to a separate database and separate query. In Jaspersoft Studio, there's also data governance. So the idea, and we'll cover that next month in the next webinar, the idea is that this template then runs in a server, is published to a server, and then in the server, there's logging access. So in Jaspersoft Studio, it's possible to capture that information and pass it in the query. So we can filter specifically data for the user, which is who is logged in, the server. So that's what we mean here by data governance. So, because we have the possibilities of using a parameter in the query, and in Studio, we have the possibility to retrieve the user logged in ID, the user ID for the logged in user. This comes back as a parameter, then the two together, we can manage the data governance and we'll have one template for all users. All right, chapter number 2, the Web Studio. So I believe those who already know Jaspersoft, I think we had about 30 or 40%, including those who know Jaspersoft in the past. You probably wouldn't know the Web Studio. This is quite recent still, about 2-3 years. But we really used our knowledge, the same reporting engine, Jasper Reports Library, and our knowledge into designing with drag and drop the report designing interface from Jaspersoft Studio, and we built this interface. And this is actually the same team. Those who know Giulio Toffoli, he's also behind this web studio. So we'll be creating rich interactive charts and visualizations. It's actually a solution created in React. So we use modern tools now to meet any requirements. It's managed by a secured by a login. So you can the access to the repository is secured. And same as Jaspersoft, we connect to any data source. It's based on the open source library, Jasper Reports. So it's also compatible with everything else. So we'll look into so the requirements for these templates now we'll be creating is to create a report for number fields. So those who are passionate with numbers. I think this is actually quite interesting data set I found. We'll be presenting fun facts about the current year, about 2025 as a number, from a number perspective. We will need to create a report which is simple and fun and pretty. And we need to dynamically create a page for each fun fact from the data in my database. And the report should look good in PDF and in HTML as well. Jaspersoft Studio, we didn't test the PDF, but we can do it here. All right, so this is Jasper Reports Web Studio. So unlike Jaspersoft Studio, I'm greeted with the options to log in either to my Google Drive or GitHub or server or Jackrabbit. So I can have my report template stored in any of these systems. I didn't enable Google Drive or GitHub, but that's easy in the configurations. I'm going to use the Jasper server repository for today. My server is also multi-tenant, so I need to enter the organization ID. Okay, took a bit of time. So in my repository in Jasper Report Server, I go to my public folder and I have the fun facts about 2025. So I can actually start from this template. I already prepared a little bit of a template. We can look at it. Doesn't show too much. We have title and we have an image and a little signature there. We'll try to make it more relevant and understand what we see here. So to start with, I will add a parameter. So I have the property panel and the data set on the right here. I have in my query, I have standard query filtering on the specific here. I'd like to make this dynamic. I didn't have a parameter in Jaspersoft Studio. It works the same way. We'll create one here. So we'll call it year. This is an integer. And by default, it will be the value 2025. And now I can use that value in my query with the standard syntax in Jaspersoft, $P for parameter, and then the curly brackets, same for the fields we used earlier with the $F. And we have a year parameter. And if I actually close the query editor, in my title, I'd like to also pass this value dynamically. So I can actually remove 2025 and take the parameter value, the year, and drag it here. So I don't need to know the syntax. I can simply drag and drop. And the same in Jaspersoft Studio when we did it with the parameter in the query, yes. All right, so I know I have in my fields if I go back to my data set, in my fields, I have some more information that's displayed now. I have a specific name which describes the image and a full descriptions. So I'd like to add the name in the group header and the description in the group footer. So I can add the group header. Well, actually, let's add the column header. We'll put the name in the group header and in the group footer, the image. So our palette is here on the left. I can drag and drop my text fields here, my text fields there. So this will be for the name and the description. And both of them, I'd like that they have a position that starts at 20 pixels from the left and 20 pixels from the top. And we'll make it so we can actually set the width here as 515. All right, and I can even make this a little bit bigger. These fields will have the same height. And yes, now I'll select just the first one. This one will be for displaying the names. Can remove this and add the names. And this one will be showing the description. And for the name, I like it to be centered, bold, a little bit bigger. For the description, I'd like it to be also centered, also a bit bigger, but aligned to the left. And I like to add a little bit of color. My little blue color, I'll put it here as well as a back color. So this is also a frame. So I'm using a frame here as well. And in the bottom, I'll have this color. All right. So I had taken some notes. I think I've done it all. Let's remove the summary. It's not needed now. And we'll go for another preview. So each time, so here I'm on a Jaspersoft Web Studio, but I'm actually modifying a template from Jasper Report server, been connecting to the repository. So I have a little warning. This actually can affect all the users on my server. So just for me to know, I can validate that. My report is empty. Why is it empty? I have a parameter and I need to add the value. And now when I put the year 2025, here you go, I have my beautiful report. Okay, did you know 2025 is 45 square? That's interesting. Didn't know about that. Actually, see here, my text has been cut. So this is a feature also in Jaspersoft. It's actually a feature of Jasper Reports library. So both Web Studio and Jaspersoft Studio will have the same. I can define that. I can even put it for both text field. I can define that if the text is longer in my database than the space I allocated, I can adjust the size. And I'm not sure where is the property. So I'll filter on text adjust and I can see I can stretch the height. And that's actually very powerful because even if it stretches, I will keep the little white here. So it's not going to stretch and eventually go over the image or something. It's actually going to push everything else down. So it still looks good. So I can really define my template the way I'd like. So let's go back in the preview. And now we have more information. And we know the next time it will occur is in 2116. Maybe not many of us will still be there. Oh, interesting. 2025 is 20 plus 25 is 45. So 45 square, 2025. Let's have fun a bit more. 1 plus all the way to 9, everything square is also 2025. If I add the cubes from 1 to 9, it's also 2025. Okay. If you're interested, I can share the report with you after this presentation. So we've seen the Jasper Reports Web Studio. Very intuitive interface, actually looks nicer. I think the teams did a great job there, coming from Jaspersoft Studio with Eclipse. Also, I think more available to non-tech savvy in a way, especially if you use it as a way to modify an existing report template, and it's secured. And you can use Git as a repository or on Google Drive or Jackrabbit. So very excited about Jasper Reports Web Studio. Now let's look into the more BI capabilities. So with Jasper Report Server, we have interfaces to design, navigate to the data, and allow any non-technical users or technical users, anyone, to navigate, to connect to the data, navigate to the data, identify correlations, trends, create some drilling, pivoting, filtering, and visualize that into, interactive charts, tables, and crosstabs. So that's also a good tool to create reports. All right, so I'm going to come back here and I'm going to go into Jasper Report Server. I'm also running it locally and we'll be creating an ad hoc view. I see the time goes quite quickly. So let's use the domain. So I mentioned it earlier. The Supermarts domain is my model that separates the data source with the user. So that's where we have all the security data governance. So if a user is not allowed to see one of these sets, for example, then they won't be able to see it. If the user speaks Italian, this will be actually displayed in Italian, including the description. So today, I'd like to know about the expenses amount over time for my stores. I'm still manager of a store company selling products to customers. So I look at the expenses amount and date, and I look at how expenses spread over different regions. So I'll take country, state, city. So I'd like to design pie charts to show the data by country, state, city, and I'd like a time series to show the expenses amount over time. So I'm going to switch to full data and start directly with a pie chart. We actually have a good library of charts. So I'll use a simple pie chart and I'm going to display the expenses amount by country, state, and city. So that's a lot of slides, but if I enable drilling, then I can see just expenses amount by country. I can actually see no country. So I can already create a filter with multi-select and I remove no country. So it's more realistic. And then when I specifically pick a country, then I can see the state in the USA. If I select Oregon, I can see the cities in Oregon. I can go back and look into a different state or a different country. So nice drilling here. I can even look at Mexico. So that's a nice dashlet. I'd like to save it as a dashlet and as a report in I didn't select. So this is my expenses by country, let's say. We'll put it in public folder and I like to have the expenses over time as well. So I'm going to switch to a time series that needs a date. Very good. And if I look specifically about USA, all right. So this is a very simple interface, actually less options, even though quite a few formatting capabilities here on the right with even specific advanced category. But we don't have too much time, and I want to allow time for questions. I see many popping up. So I'm going to save this as, or even create a report. But I'm going to save this as my time series. And we'll jump, well, I can review. So we've seen the interface so design really for anyone, even non-technical users. They're able to design their reports and dashlets and interactive reports and dashlets. They're actually responsive, so we'll see that in the dashboard. And it's secured because there's the domain, the metadata layer. Jaspersoft has a lot of customers using this and relying on this security. So it's a proven secured layer that enables you to empower your users, and a large charts and visualizations library. All right, now the dashboard. So Jasper Report Server also comes with a dashboard designer. So to enable non-technical users as well to create their own dashboard. So it's also the principle of drag and drop, setting some configurations, different elements that we can use, whether it's a text, an image, or existing dashlets, or we can even create new dashlets. So we'll keep our use case about expenses, and we'll create a report that show these in a dashboard. We'll create a dashboard to present this data from dashlet. All right, let's go back. And now we will be creating our dashboard. So we have this content here. I can actually add a new chart and select my domain, etc. I can create cost tabs, tables. I can add some text, or I can take existing dashlets that I already have. I have this KPI dashlet. Quite nice. Needs a little bit of space. I'll remove the title bar. Well, it doesn't change much. And then we'll use the two dashlets we've created together. So I put them in a public folder. I can find them here. The expenses by country. Position it here, and the time series at the bottom. Can actually remove the time series, do a little bit of formatting. I like removing the borders around the dashlet. I think it looks nicer. And I can enable drilling. So I can select on the country and it shows the specific state in it, but I can also control other dashlets. So for example, with hyperlink, I can control the data in the other chart. So I can control the data in the time series for the country, and I can control the data in my KPI dashlets also on the country. So now I can go and view, and I have my dashboard. Maybe you've noticed that without the panel on the right, we still fill the space. So it's web responsive. And then I can select Mexico, and it filters everything on Mexico. I even have the different cities in Mexico. My chart here can be expanded because I don't see very well. I can zoom. This is also available on any charts I didn't show earlier. I can really specifically look into these data here. It's not very visible, comparing the different months. So interactive charts that I can then save, and that's webinar dashboard. All right. So do we have a bit of time for the questions? Yes. So let's jump in the Q&A. Okay, thank you for all the questions here. So I can see a first question here. If we still need to publish reports and dashboards to Jasper Server with the Web Studio. So with the Jaspersoft Web Studio, same as Jaspersoft Studio actually, we actually create just templates. So they can be saved in the server, but they can be saved in any repository. It's not only Jasper Server that can run reports. You can run reports within your own application with the library, or you can run reports with the microservices, Jasper Reports IO. We've had a webinar last month about it on the microservices. So no, the answer is you don't have to publish the templates to the server, but it's still possible as we've done. We've saved it back into the repository in this demo. Very long question here. I'll try to read quick. They have customer and they don't know the database credentials. Yes, I don't think Jaspersoft can help retrieving the database connection. Maybe in Jaspersoft, we save the data, the passwords, but it's usually encrypted. In Jasper Server, they said the DB credentials, I can see where they point, but not the password. Okay, I'm not sure. It seems to me a Jasper Report Server question. We'll be looking into Jasper Report Server next month in the Deliver webinar, so stay tuned. Can I get training also? Yes, Jaspersoft has an option. So if you have subscription with Jaspersoft, we have packages that can deliver workshops or training. Did the preview change the report that is on the server? Will this happen whenever you change something in Web Studio? Yes. So if you really do changes on the report that's used, that's not in a development environment, then you should probably do a copy of that. I didn't show, but in Jaspersoft, in Jasper Reports Web Studio, you can copy paste resources like I did with opening a resource, and then you would modify this one, and then once you're happy with the preview, then you can paste it back into the original path so that you update for everyone. That's indeed what happened. The report was updated in the server. This is using Jasper Server. So the Jasper Reports Web Studio, I believe the question is about Jasper Reports Web Studio, is embedded, is also running with Jasper Reports Server. So when you install Jasper Reports Server, the Web Studio is included in it, but you can install Jasper Reports Web Studio standalone. That's what I showed you today. Is this now regular Jasper and not Jasper Studio? I'm not sure I understand the question. Both Jaspersoft Studio and Jasper Reports Web Studio and Jasper Reports Server for the ad hoc designer and dashboard designer, they're all regular Jasper. This is us. Which version you're using? I'm using the latest version. So all of what you're seeing today is from the latest version. If you go to jaspersoft.com/trial, you can download any of these solutions: Jaspersoft Studio, Jasper Reports Web Studio, Jasper Reports Server, latest version. So that's version 9. If you're using JSON as data source and need to access fields in child nodes in the same report, is it best to use sub-reports or JSON-QL? Yes, with JSON-QL, you can actually Google it. We have a nice documentation. Actually, the second part of the page is quite useful. You need to know the little symbols to go up one branch or go down. So it requires to learn like SQL is a language that has a lot of complexity as well. But we can discuss it, I guess, separately. It's possible to do a lot with JSON-QL. You don't specifically need a sub-report. Sometimes sub-reports are actually useful with JSON data because yes, the document by nature is not a nice table formatted that can be joined with other tables. So by its nature, JSON data tends to require more sub-reports, but not all the time. Through web interfaces, it's possible to allow the end user to modify templates without modifying the data source. So none of what Jaspersoft does changes the data source. It's not possible to write back on the data source. We only do select statements to the data source. So no, we are not affecting the data source. We modify the templates from the Jaspersoft server repository if it's from the server, but probably best to use the GitHub repository or Google Drive like many people do nowadays. Can the dashboard be inserted into a web application? So very easy answer. The answer is yes, and we'll cover that next month, how to deliver the reports and dashboards to the users. The language used in the report templates from Studio or Web Studio by default is Java, but it's possible to set it to JavaScript or Groovy. That's the three languages we support. Can the school dashboard be created in the non-professional version of Jaspersoft Studio? So Jaspersoft Studio tends to create more reports, like pixel perfect report, as we call it, or operational reports. But you can create a report which is presented in landscape with different charts in it. It kind of looks like a dashboard, and with the parameter, you can kind of create interactivity. But usually, a dashboard, responsive, interactive, modern, is with Jaspersoft Server, not Jaspersoft Studio. If I have a multi-tenant application with each tenant have a separate schema, oh, how can Jasper reports connect to different schema dynamically? The schema name would be determined at runtime based on the logged in user. All right, okay. So it's different schema, but the same table structures underneath, I would hope so. So if we have the same table names and columns in each table, and the schema changes, in Jasper Report Server, we have a very powerful feature with the data source connections, where the database name, username, passwords, and schema, and everything in the URL can be passed dynamically from profile attributes of the users or the tenants of the users that's specified in Jasper Report Server. So extremely powerful, but that's more like a server feature. Don't know if I'll cover that next month, but you should probably, if you're interested in that, you should probably reach out to us through the usual channels, and I'll be very happy to schedule a presentation or one of my colleagues to show you how this works. That's possible with the trial. If you do jaspersoft.com/trial, you'll be able to test this. Does the subscription include Jaspersoft Studio Professional? Yes. Every single of the subscriptions with Jaspersoft include Jaspersoft Studio and Jasper Reports Web Studio, with no limits of number of users. Are you able to link to an Excel spreadsheet as a data source for the report, or link to a spreadsheet from the dashboard? So it is possible to use as a data source any data from any relational data source, big data, or files such as XML, JSON we've discussed, Excel, CSV. So yes, Jaspersoft can read these data. The second part of the question, or link to a spreadsheet from the dashboard. Not sure I understand this part. Link to an Excel spreadsheet as a data source, yes. Or link to a spreadsheet from the dashboard. Not sure. So yes, probably we'll need to reach out separately offline on this. All right, so I managed to cover all the questions, but I'm 7 minutes late. Sorry about that. Last few things. I mentioned we have 30-day trial on jaspersoft.com/trial. Jasper Server, Studio, Web Studio, Jasper Reports.io microservices is available on the trial. No limit in features. The trial offers allows you to test any of the features. Next month, we'll have the deep dive with me again into distribution and delivery options, still with Jaspersoft. So stay tuned, March 27th in your own time zone. And you can already register on jaspersoft.com/events. Thank you very much for your time today. And if you'd like to go further, I'd be very happy to have a dedicated session. I know we have teams in APAC, in the US, everywhere. So we'll be very happy to have further presentations with you, understand your projects, and see how we can work together. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.